Welcome to the Empowered Meaning Coaching Podcast Series. I'm your host, Louise and Maurice. You know I love hearing from you. So in the comment section, make sure that you're sharing your experience. And if this material is resonating with you, make sure you're giving it a thumbs up and share it with anyone who might benefit from it. Let's continue. Are humble people confident? What do you think? Well, in this podcast, we are going to talk about humility and confidence, and we're going to begin with the meaning of humility so that you understand what it is and what it isn't. And then we're going to look at the humility and confidence research so that you have those statistics that you need to back up anything that you want to talk about or share in meetings or with clients. And then we're going to look at arrogant people's limiting beliefs and give you some insight as to what's happening underneath the surface and how that's impacting their confidence as well. And then coaching arrogant people, share with you 5 coaching questions that you can use and give you some insight as well on how to approach that, and then give you 5 additional free coaching questions available in PDF document format on my website. Remember, no email address is required. It's free to download. All right, let's begin this podcast. Remember, you've got your listening ears on, and we're going to look at the meaning of humility. Let's continue. Here's some quick tip reminders. There's a lot of great information contained in this podcast. I don't want you to miss anything. So if you like to read as you listen to me, click on the CC to pull up the closed captions. This gear icon, when you click on it, this will pull up the settings. The playback speed is on normal. When you click on that, you can increase the speed to 2x, which will make this go quicker. Let's continue. Let's start by dissecting the meaning of humble or humility, beginning with what these words mean to you. When you think of the words humble or humility, what one word or phrase would you use to describe it? I want you to keep those words in mind as I discuss the dictionary definition of humility. Now, this is from Merriam-Webster's online dictionary. The definition of humility is freedom from pride or arrogance. The quality or state of being humble, which means showing a modest estimate of one's own importance. Now, some character traits of people who are humble: they are not boastful, they are not arrogant. They do not brag about their achievements or possessions, but rather appreciate the contributions of others. They are grateful for everything in life. They recognize how fortunate they are and express their gratitude for what they have. They do not belittle or mock others. They respect everyone as equals and do not judge them based on their appearance, status, or abilities. They are not jealous or envious. They are happy for the success and happiness of others and do not feel threatened or inferior. They are not proud or egotistic. They have a realistic and balanced view of themselves and acknowledge their strengths and weaknesses. They are open-minded and willing to learn. They do not think they know everything, but rather seek feedback and advice from others. They are curious and eager to improve themselves. They are patient and forgiving. They do not get easily offended or angry, but rather show compassion and understanding. They are willing to let go of grudges and move on. They are low, self-focused, and generous. They do not seek attention or praise, but rather focus on the needs and interests of others. They are kind and helpful and share what they have. They are peacemakers and harmonizers. They do not cause or escalate conflicts, but rather try to resolve them peacefully. They value harmony and cooperation over competition and rivalry. Now, these are some of the personality traits of people who are humble. However, humility is not a fixed or static trait, but rather a dynamic and evolving one. Humble people are always striving to grow and become better versions of themselves. Now let's look at the opposite side of the spectrum and look at some character traits of people who are arrogant. They brag or boast about their achievements, abilities, or possessions. They want to impress others and make themselves look superior. They tend to be rude or disrespectful to others. They do not care about other people's feelings, opinions, or needs. They may interrupt, insult, or mock others. They need to be right or have the final say. They do not admit their mistakes or acknowledge their limitations. They may argue, dismiss, or ignore others' perspectives. They seek admiration or validation from others. They crave attention and praise and may fish for compliments or manipulate others to get them. They exaggerate their abilities or achievements. They may lie, embellish, or take credit for things they did not do. They may also downplay or deny their failures or weaknesses. They have a my way or the highway attitude. They are stubborn, inflexible, and intolerant of different views or approaches. They may impose their will or preferences on others. They lack self-awareness or empathy, and they do not recognize or care about the impact of their behavior on others. They may be oblivious to their own flaws or blind to their own arrogance. They see everything as a competition or a challenge. They are driven by ego and pride and may try to outdo, dominate, or belittle others. They may also be jealous or resentful of others' success or happiness. Now, these are some of the common character traits of people who are arrogant. However, arrogance is not a fixed or static trait, but rather a dynamic and evolving one. Arrogant people may change or improve their behavior with time, feedback, and self-reflection. All right, now that you know the dictionary definitions of humility and some of the character traits that people who are humble and arrogant possess, how close was the dictionary definition to the one word or phrase that you used to describe humble? Now, from that dictionary definition of humility and the character traits of people who are humble and arrogant, I want you to think of people you know who fit those descriptions. And as you continue to listen, and especially with the research coming up, it's going to help you to gain insight and perspective. But before we get to that research, let's look deeper at the meaning of humility, what it is and what it's not, as well as some myths associated with it. Now, humility is the quality or condition of being humble, which means having a modest opinion or estimate of one's own importance, rank, or abilities. Humility also involves recognizing and accepting the limitations and imperfections of one's knowledge, opinions, and beliefs. Humility is not the same as self-deprecation, insecurity, or weakness. Humility does not mean feeling lowly, worthless, or inferior. Humility does not mean avoiding or denying one's strengths, talents, or achievements. Humility does not mean being passive, timid, or indecisive. Now, some of the myths associated with people who are humble. Myth 1, humble people lack confidence. Well, this is false because humility is not based on low self-esteem or self-doubt, but on an accurate and realistic assessment of oneself and one's place in the world. Humble people are confident in their worth and abilities, but they also acknowledge their limitations and need for improvement. Humble people are open to learning from others and from their own mistakes. They do not rely on their own opinions or perspectives, but seek the truth and the best possible solutions. Myth 2, humility is not attractive. Well, this is false because humility is actually a very appealing and admirable trait. Humility shows respect, kindness, and generosity towards others. Humility also shows wisdom, maturity, and integrity. Humble people are not self-centered or arrogant, but rather attentive and caring. Humble people are not boastful or pretentious, but rather honest, authentic. Humble people are not stubborn or dogmatic, but rather flexible and adaptable. And the final myth, myth 3, humble people want to be recognized as humble. Well, this is false because humility is not a matter of appearance or reputation, but of attitude and behavior. Humble people do not seek praise, recognition, or validation from others. They do not act humble to impress or manipulate others. They do not pretend to be humble to hide their faults or shortcomings. Humble people are humble because they value humility as a virtue and a way of life. They're humble because they want to serve others. All right, so now that you know the dictionary definitions, the meaning of humility and what it means to be humble, some of those character traits and character traits of people who are arrogant, we just learned what humility is, what it isn't, and some of those myths associated with people who are humble. What does the research say? Are humble people confident? Well, let's look at that next. Humility and confidence research. Some researchers say that the meaning of humility is formed in childhood, in healthy ways and in unhealthy, distorted ways. And then this then impacts people into adulthood. Some healthy ways are having secure attachment with caregivers who model and encourage humility, empathy, and gratitude. Receiving positive feedback and praise for their efforts and achievements without being overindulged or inflated. Learning from their mistakes and failures without being harshly criticized or shamed. Being exposed to diverse perspectives and experiences without being indoctrinated or isolated. Now, some unhealthy, distorted ways, having insecure attachment with caregivers who neglect, abuse, or manipulate them, leading to low self-esteem or narcissism, receiving negative feedback and criticism for their efforts and achievements without being supported or validated, avoiding or denying their mistakes and failures without being accountable or responsible, being exposed to narrow or biased perspectives and experiences without being challenged or enlightened. There are 3 situations that can trigger people when they have distorted views of humility. The first situation is being confronted with someone who is more successful, talented, or knowledgeable than them, triggering envy, insecurity, or resentment. The second situation that can trigger people when they have distorted views of humility are being asked to admit their mistakes, apologize, or ask for help, triggering shame, guilt, or pride. And the third situation that can trigger people when they have distorted views of humility are being challenged or questioned on their beliefs, opinions, or actions, triggering defensiveness, anger, or hostility. The main fear that people experience when they don't feel humility is the fear of being exposed, rejected, or humiliated. They fear that their flaws, weaknesses, or ignorance will be revealed and that they will lose their status, respect, or admiration. The belief that comes from that fear is the belief that they are superior, entitled, or infallible. They believe that they are better than others, deserve special treatment, and can do no wrong. The feelings they experience are feelings of arrogance, contempt, or self-righteousness. They feel superior, disdainful, or justified in their attitudes and behaviors. The behaviors and defense mechanisms that they use as protective measures are behaviors and defense mechanisms of lack of humility, such as self-centeredness. They prioritize their own needs, desires, and interests over those of others. Name dropping, they boast about their connections, achievements, or possessions to impress others. Arrogance, they act in a condescending, rude, or dismissive manner towards others. Inability to admit mistakes, they refuse to acknowledge, apologize, or learn from their errors or faults. Ignoring social norms, they violate or disregard the rules, expectations, or etiquette of social situations. Using false modesty, they pretend to be humble but secretly seek praise, recognition, or validation. Excessive flattery, they compliment or agree with others excessively, insincerely, or manipulatively. Talking over others, they interrupt, dominate, or monopolize conversations without listening or respecting others. Now, the character traits or personality traits that result when people don't feel humility and do feel humility are when people don't feel humility, they tend to have character traits or personality traits such as narcissism, egocentrism, entitlement, vanity, hubris, or self-importance. And when people do feel humility, they tend to have character traits or personality traits such as modesty, openness, gratitude, curiosity, wisdom, or compassion. And we had talked at great length in the meaning of humility about those character traits. Now, humility and confidence are often seen as opposites, but they can actually coexist and complement each other. People who are humble in relation to confidence do not have less confidence or more confidence than people who lack humility. Rather, they have a different kind of confidence, one that is based on self-awareness, curiosity, and openness to feedback. This is what some researchers call confident humility. Confident humility is being secure enough in your expertise and strengths to admit your ignorance and weaknesses. It allows you to believe in yourself while questioning your strategies. It also helps you to learn from your mistakes, seek out new perspectives, and collaborate with others. According to Wharton management professor Adam Grant, confident humility is a key to better relationship and leadership as it fosters a learning culture and invites innovation. Grant cites the example of NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, who displayed confident humility when he told his team, "I don't know how we're going to get games running again, but I believe in our ability to figure it out." There is scientific evidence that confident humility can improve thinking and reasoning skills. Psychologists have found that people who show intellectual humility or the willingness to acknowledge the limits of their knowledge are better learners, decision makers, and problem solvers. They are also more likely to update their beliefs when presented with conflicting information and opinions. A recent paper by psychologists Tanel Porter and Karina Schumann argues that researchers should approach their work with intellectual humility, as it could help restore confidence in the social sciences following revelations that original work is often impossible to replicate. People who are humble in relation to confidence have a balanced and realistic view of themselves and their abilities. They are not overconfident or underconfident, but rather confident in what they know and humble about what they don't know. They are also open to learning and growing, which can make them more effective and successful in various domains. Confident humility is not a contradiction, but a combination of two valuable traits that can enhance both personal and professional lives. Research has also shown that humility and confidence can be complementary qualities that enhance performance and well-being. A study by Owens in 2013 found that humble leaders were more effective, influential, and respected than arrogant leaders. A study by Davis in 2011 found that humble employees were more engaged, productive, and satisfied than boastful employees. A study by Tangney in 2000 found that humble people had higher self-esteem, lower anxiety, and less depression than prideful people. And a study by Exline and Geyer in 2004 found that humble people were more forgiving, grateful, and cooperative than resentful, entitled, and competitive people. Now, all of this research on humility and confidence is being shared with you, not so that you judge people, but as a means to give you context and understanding. When you understand the origin of people who are humble and people who lack humility or tend to be more on the arrogant side, you can understand the behaviors, the thought patterns that continue, that fuel their actions and behaviors. And it helps you to not take it personally, and you can guide them in a better and more impactful way. All right, now let's talk about people who are arrogant and their limiting beliefs. Limiting beliefs are thoughts or assumptions that hold us back from achieving our goals and living our best lives. Some specific limiting beliefs that arrogant people have are, I don't need to learn anything new. I already know everything. I don't need to work hard. I deserve success without effort. I don't need to collaborate with others. I can do everything by myself. They also believe that because they're superior to others, they deserve special treatment or recognition. They believe that they know more than others and don't need to listen or learn from anyone else. And they believe that they're always right and they don't have to admit their mistakes or weaknesses. Now, these limiting beliefs can impact their success in various ways, such as they might miss out on opportunities to grow and improve themselves by rejecting feedback, advice, or new information. They alienate others by being rude, dismissive, or condescending, and lose trust and respect from their peers, colleagues, or clients. They fail to achieve their goals or solve problems by being overconfident, lazy, or stubborn, and refusing to seek help or adjust their strategies. They damage their reputation and credibility by being dishonest, arrogant, or defensive, and not taking responsibility for their actions or outcomes. To overcome these limiting beliefs, arrogant people need to develop more humility, curiosity, and openness. They need to recognize their strengths and weaknesses, appreciate the value and diversity of others, and embrace learning and growth as a long-term process. They need to listen more, talk less, and ask more questions. They need to work hard, be flexible, and collaborate with others. They need to admit their mistakes, learn from them, and apologize when necessary. By doing so, they can become more successful and happier in their personal and professional lives. But we know what happens quite often. People do not see what they do not see. And that's where working with a coach or someone else who can guide them and empower them to see differences that can help them. So as we continue, we're going to learn about how you coach people who are arrogant. Coaching someone who is arrogant with limiting beliefs can be challenging, but it's not impossible. Here are some steps that you can take to coach someone who is arrogant. And it really begins with establishing that rapport and trust with the client. Because when you show genuine interest and curiosity in their perspective, their goals and their challenges, it helps you to develop that rapport. They know that you're interested in them and you're not just out to change them or telling them that they're wrong for being arrogant. Because if you do that, that means that you're judging them or you're looking for that confrontation, and that might be a trigger and trigger defensiveness or resistance. So you always want to use those powerful questions to help the client reflect on their behavior, beliefs, and impact. For example, ask them how their arrogance affects their relationships, performance, or happiness. Ask them what they are afraid of losing or missing out on if they change their attitude. Ask them what they hope to gain or achieve by being more humble or open-minded. You always want to use feedback and evidence to challenge the client's assumptions and blind spots. Provide specific examples of how their arrogance has hindered their success or caused problems for themselves or others. Using data, testimonials, or other sources of information to support your feedback. Be respectful and constructive and avoid personal attacks or criticism. You want to help them identify and replace their limiting beliefs with more empowering ones. Use coaching techniques such as reframing, affirmations, or visualization to help the client create new narratives and mental images that support their desired change. For example, help them reframe their arrogance as confidence, their humility as strength, or their openness as curiosity. You want to support them in taking action and practicing new behaviors. Help them set realistic and measurable goals and design action plans that align with their values and vision. Provide them with tools, resources, or strategies that can help them overcome obstacles or setbacks. Celebrate their progress and achievements and encourage them to seek feedback and learn from their experiences. Let's talk now about 5 coaching questions that you can use to help people who are arrogant balance this bravado with a dash of humility. The first question, what are some of the costs of not being humble? What are some of the costs? And they might have never even thought about this. They think that they're just going along fine. And remember, it's always about providing some examples. Question 2, how does arrogance or pride hinder your growth and happiness? And specifically, depending on what kind of coach, consultant, and the type of people that you lead or manage, you can pull in examples without specifically telling them that they're wrong or they've done something. And just looking at those examples, then they can bring in their own. Question 3, what are some of the benefits of being humble? Remember, it's always about telling people or sharing with them ways that, hey, being humble can benefit them, because they might not see that. They may have only been shown that arrogance is going to help them. And again, arrogance might be that defense mechanism. So it's about helping them to peel back those layers. The fourth question, how can humility help you achieve your goals and improve your relationships? So this is about guiding them to develop their own examples so that they can focus on how it's going to help them. And then the final question, how do you define success and failure? How do you handle success and failure with grace and learning? Because again, as I'd mentioned, arrogance might be that defense mechanism, that protective measure, because maybe deep down inside they do fear failure. And it's that outward bravado that's really hiding some of the weaknesses that they feel inside. So getting them to develop that action plan, how are you going to handle success and failure with grace and learning, pulling in a little bit of humility. All right, so those 5 questions are very powerful when put into action, but I want you to keep listening because I'm going to let you know where you can download 5 more specific and powerful questions that will help you coach arrogant people so that they can bring in a little bit of humility. Well, that's a wrap for this podcast. Hopefully you've been sharing your experience in the comments section. I want to hear from you. You bring with you so much valuable insight. And if this podcast, what you've been listening to, if it resonated with you, make sure you give it a thumbs up as well. Share with people who can benefit from it. If you are not a subscriber, make sure you hit that subscribe button as well as the bell so you're notified when the next podcast drops. I am your podcast host, Louise and Maurice, and I appreciate that you've spent your valuable time with me. As promised, I'm going to share with you where you can find the valuable PDF document with the rest of the coaching questions on it. You want to go to my website, louiseandmaurice.com, and you want to click on free or hover your mouse over free, and you see all of these resources that I have for you: free coaching training, coaching questions, empowered mindset. The last one, what should I do, which was the empowered prevention series, and now coaching podcast. You want to click on coaching podcast, and that will take you to the free resources associated with season 1 of the coaching podcast.